Lunchback, and we're about to get started with another lecture, another lesson, another session in personal finance at the University of Houston at the Bauer College of Business. I'm having technical difficulty this morning. If you're joining us through Facebook or the YouTube, you will probably notice that the title of the post is incorrect. I'm not sure what's going on with my Restream dashboard, but I tried to access it and could not do so. So today we're going to talk about bargaining and negotiating. We're also going to talk about adding home and auto insurance to your financial plan. So those are the two major topics we're going to cover this morning. I'm going to jump into Zoom now. It's almost time to get started. I just wanted to kind of make that pre-announcement about the technical difficulties we're having this morning. So let me see if I can jump in and let some folks in. Okay, welcome. If you're joining in Zoom, I'm starting to let some folks in. We're a few minutes early, but you're here, I'm here. So if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to talk about anything, this is your time. We are going live on Facebook and the YouTube at this moment. However, we're having a little technical difficulties in terms of the titles. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. I think we're streaming live. I hope we are. I believe we are. And so today we're going to talk about adding home and auto insurance to your plan. That's going to be your assignment this coming week. And also we're going to talk about bargaining and negotiating. So I'm going to do a sound check. Can anybody just tag in a comment in the chat? Let me know you can hear me, or unmute yourself and let me know you can hear me. Awesome. Thank you, Mandy. Awesome. Thanks, Liz. I like the lips there, Liz. The big, that's a cool picture. I don't know how to do that. Anyway. Okay, so if you have any questions, you're welcome to let her rip, Tater Chip. I got some questions this week via email about the assignment, one of the assignments you had for last week. And so I've done a couple of tutorial videos. I posted those in Money Study Group. I think that's what I'm going to do moving forward, is when I have good questions that you guys cannot get an answer to in GroupMe. I'm happy to do a tutorial video to give you some direction and clarity. Sometimes you have unique issues, and that's what happened this week, I think, with one of the students. I guess I could say his first name. He posted in GroupMe, and so it was, folks in GroupMe were unable to answer the question. So then I got the email and I started to answer the question. But I also posted in GroupMe with hopefully some clear direction about using GroupMe to get questions answered. So if you're a student who has a question, when you send me an email, I think I may have mentioned this early in the semester, but if I didn't, let me just repeat it. If you do have a question and you need my help, I'm happy, again, to do a tutorial video to try to give you direction and help you get your question answered. A lot of the questions that come into GroupMe may not be able to be answered. Most of them, I think, could be answered, but I'm going to ask you to follow this protocol. Whether you're sending me an email with a question about your financial planning portal, or you're submitting it to GroupMe, either one. I'm going to ask you to follow this protocol. So when you send me an email and you kind of type out your question, and sometimes that's a little difficult to follow. I try, and it's challenging for you to really give me a good, clear question. Just like, think about it, it's a lot of work to post a good, clear assignment instructions. It's work, okay? It takes some effort to clearly communicate. So, for example, in an assignment instructions, one of the things I've been doing is trying to put screenshots in to show you what I'm saying, because a picture paints 1,000 words. And so when you have a question, especially about your financial planning portal or some element of your financial plan, it's really helpful if you just grab a screenshot of the data card that your question uh, is related to. And that's not only true for me. When you're sending me a question, I appreciate screenshots. One student sent me a PDF with a bunch of screenshots, which is fine too, but you don't need to create a PDF. When you send me an email, you can just throw in a couple of screenshots, images, and I'm happy to look at those in the email. That's actually easier when you're doing that by email. Now, when you're doing your assignments, those screenshots need to be in one document, as you know. But at any rate, my point here is I want to help you get your questions answered. And I know that there are a lot of students who are active in GroupMe who also want to help answer questions because it feels good to answer a question. I like it when I can figure out, solve a problem for a student. And I want you guys to have the opportunity to do that for one another. And it's just a good practice. It's a good exercise. And that is what GroupMe is for. But I'm finding that the students with questions are not posting screenshots, which would be really helpful if you ask a question, if you show your screenshot. I wouldn't be shy about doing that. I would encourage you to do that because if you're asking a question without providing enough detail, there's no way the students in GroupMe are going to be able to even possibly answer that question. So yesterday we had, or maybe it was the day before, anyway, we had a question. I posted the screenshot and offered a 50-point credit to the first student who answered it, and almost immediately, it got answered. And I do not see the student present who won those 50 points. But anyway, we did. That was kind of fun. Jason, she got to it quick. She sure did, and you were trying. I'm glad to hear that. I only offered it to one person, but as you can see, if you happen to be engaged in GroupMe for that little episode, it was pretty simple to see, at least to start out, what's the problem here? Why did this student have a ballooning mortgage payment? Turns out there was more to the story. So after we corrected, the fact was the student had he was paying less on his mortgage than he had set up in his mortgage data card for the minimum payment. So let's say you have a mortgage of $500,000 and the minimum payment is $2,500 and you choose to pay $1,500. That's going to mess up your plan. And so that was the first thing, and that's what the student got 50 points for identifying. It was right there in the data card. Turns out there was more to the story, and so it took me a couple more stabs at the problem, and I did a tutorial video to show you how we discovered what the problem was. Turns out the problem for this student who had a mortgage payment that was like demanding to be paid, a few years into the mortgage, the full balance was being demanded to be paid, and the student tried everything to try to figure out what's going on, and including emailing me, and we interacted a few times. But it turns out what happened is that student had posted an additional goal of I forgot the name of the goal. Anybody remember what the name of the goal was? It's in the video. But the goal that he posted was to relocate his home. So when you relocate your home, your financial planning portal, the mathematics behind the computer assumes that you're selling your old home and that you're paying off that mortgage. And that's what was happening inside of this student's plan, is his mortgage was being required to be paid off. So there was this big payment that shows up like 10 years into a 30-year mortgage, and we couldn't figure out why until we looked a little deeper into his plan and saw that he had added this extra goal of relocating. Now, you are welcome to add whatever goals you want to your plan to make these plans your plans. But I would encourage you to go slowly and stick to the basics as we move through this semester. You'll have access to your financial planning portal after this semester. I'm not going to take that away if you want to keep it. But during the semester, to make it easy for everyone, including me, you might want to consider just sticking with the basics. And if you decide you want to add something like a new goal to relocate, just know that everything you do in your financial plan is going to affect something else in your financial plan. That's how it works. So, anyway, that was kind of fun. I thought that was fun. But it brought up, again, this issue that I wanted to highlight, which I think will help all of us, which is if you have a question and you post it in GroupMe, go ahead and include a screenshot of your data card or whatever it is relative to the question that you have from your financial plan. It will help the students who are seeing it engage in your question and have much better shot at giving you some helpful direction. And hopefully, again, before you email me, you will do that. That's the whole purpose of GroupMe. So that's that kind of sort of rambling on message. Now it is 10:06. It's time to get started. So let's get started. I'm going to start out by talking about bargaining and negotiating. To do that, I want to invite you to consider being a part of a group on this side of the room. If we were together, whenever I taught this lesson in the beginning, when we were all together in a classroom, I would always separate the class. I didn't make you get up and move, but mentally, I wanted you to choose which side of the room you were on. On this side of the room were folks like my wife, Connie, who, when you think about negotiating and bargaining, feel like it's awkward, uncomfortable. It's not something you love doing. So think about it for a second. That side of the room, I'm calling it my left side of the room, are folks who really don't see bargaining and negotiating as something that you really want to engage in. On the other hand, on the right side of the room, what I'm considering the right side of the room, my side of the room, we feel like bargaining and negotiating is kind of like a sport. We enjoy it, we engage in it, we look forward to it. We can't imagine doing life without bargaining and negotiating. And for the most part, we think on this side of the room that everything is negotiable. And again, on the other side of the room, my wife, her side of the room, and so many people that I know, maybe you're one of them, you don't think everything's negotiable. And why would you even go through the headache and the heartache and the frustration and the awkwardness and the uncomfortableness of trying to bargain and negotiate anything? So take a minute, think about which side of the room are you on. So go ahead and put a chat in. Are you on the right side of the room? Thank you, Rehan. I'm with you because I don't want to pay higher prices. I'm with you. I don't want to pay high. I want to pay as little as I can. Okay, and I want to spend as little as I can to get the best deal possible. So I only see one comment. Who else? Come on, you guys, chime in. Tell me which side of the room you're on. If you're watching on Facebook or the YouTube, do the same thing. Just make the declaration. Bargaining side. Thank you, Mandy. Good to hear that, because that's the side of the room I'm on. I would want you to be on my side of the room. I want you all to be on my side of the room, but I know you're not. So is there anyone out there that just says, I don't love bargaining and negotiating. It's a little awkward. My wife thinks it's like not for her. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And I don't want to put pressure on you, make you feel uncomfortable to go ahead and declare something that you're not comfortable declaring to the whole wide world, although it is only in our Zoom meeting. It is a thrill, to be honest, like a high. Jason, yeah, that's how it works. I'm on the right side, even though I bargain when making big purchases only, like a car or a house. Okay, yeah, and that's cool. Right side, I think it's awkward because explaining is complicated. Liz, I'm not sure I understand what you mean. You're on the right side of the room, so you are on the side of bargaining and negotiating, but you think it's awkward because explaining is complicated. But I'm just going to take for granted, Liz, that you're on my side of the room, our side of the room, the bargaining side of the room, and that's cool. But if you're not, this lesson is for you. For those of you who say, you know what, I don't like to bargain and negotiate. Because what I want to do today is help you put into context why bargaining and negotiating is an important part of personal finance. It's an important part of your financial life. So think about it for a minute with me, like a math question, a numbers question. So there's no right answer here, but pretend there is a right answer, and help me come up with the right answer. And the question is, let's assume that we're all making $100,000 a year and we all are buying the same basket of goods, okay, the same services, the same products. We're all buying the same thing. We have rent, we have utilities, we have groceries, we have car insurance, we have cars, we have houses, we have you name it. We all have the same thing: Wi Fi, phone service, iPhones. Um, we all have the same thing. So we're all buying the same thing and we all make $100,000 a year. That's a simple scenario. Let's pretend we're all in the same situation. The only difference is that on this side of the room, these folks are not going to negotiate because it's awkward, uncomfortable, and they don't feel like it's something that is necessary or something they want to do. On the other hand, on this side of the room, this group, my group, our group, the bargaining and negotiating freak shows of America, or of the world, really, because bargaining and negotiating is not an American thing. It's a human thing, because everyone really wants a good bargain. The question is, what are you willing to do for the good bargain? Are you designed to bargain and negotiate? And if you are, if you're on this side of the room and you bargain and negotiate everything, versus this side of the room, give me a percentage of that $100,000 a year. How much of an advantage and a percentage would we have on the right side of the room for those of us who bargain and negotiate everything versus those who are on the left side of the room who don't bargain and negotiate? So, what do you think? What's the percentage of benefit of $100,000? So that makes the percentages really easy. If you're on the side of the room where you bargain and negotiate everything versus those on the left side of the room who don't bargain and don't negotiate anything, what's the percentage of benefit that we're going to have on the right side of the room? So do you think we save 2% a year, 1% a year? You think we save 5? What do you think the percentage is that we're able to benefit in terms of savings if we negotiate and bargain everything? So come on, give me an answer. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, go ahead and put it in just for fun. And I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait. It is hard, Jason, to quantify because the seller may not be willing to budge in many instances. That's exactly right. So we're coming up with an answer, a percentage that there's really no right answer. Who cares? Just a question to make us think, because I want us to kind of acknowledge that there is a difference in a year. If we all purchased the same things, we all needed the same services, the same products, and we all made $100,000 a year, that there is some number that makes it worth considering whether or not we want to learn a few skills related to bargaining and negotiating so that it helps us financially over our lifetime. That's really what I'm trying to do in this lesson, is to get you to think. And that's how I wanted to try to do that, is to come up with this scenario and make you pick a number. So, Jason, 50% at the very least compared to buying at MSRP. MSRP is manufacturer suggested retail price. I think that's one of the questions in your quiz this week, or last week maybe. So 50%, that's a big number. So of 100 grand, I'm saving 50 grand, 50%. That's a lot in 1 year. Anyone else? Jason, thank you for that contribution. I'm not looking at Facebook or YouTube right now because that's just overwhelming to try to be in so many places. So I'll look at those comments later. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, what do you think the percentage might be for those of us on the right side of the room who negotiate everything versus the people on the left side of the room who don't negotiate anything? Is there a percentage? So I have one answer. That's kind of sad. Okay, I'm going to let Chloe in because Chloe keeps coming back. Chloe, you're late, but welcome aboard. So, Chloe, you're going to want to go back and watch the recorded version because you missed 15 minutes. So let's see. I'm looking for the percentage, and I'm not getting it. You guys are. I hope you're not watching Netflix or you know Facebook, whatever. Hello, give me a number. I'm looking for a number. I just have 50%. Come on, Mandy, what do you think? You said you're on the side of the negotiators. How much? What do you think that percentage might be? Maybe 20%. Thank you. I think that's probably closer than 50. And I don't know. There's no right answer. The point is, for those of us who bargain and negotiate, it does make a difference. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories. Liz says probably 30%. That may be right, may be wrong. It depends, I guess. Part of it depends on, well, in this lesson this week, this assignment rather, that's coming up, I'm going to give you 7 of my favorite tips. They're just 7 of the things that I think are pretty consistently helpful in terms of learning how to bargain and negotiate. And I want you, every one of you, to think about bargaining and negotiating. And I want you to think about how you do it, when you do it, why you do it, and what the outcomes might be for you. And I'm going to ask you to share some of that experience with me and some of your intention about bargaining and negotiating in the future. So when I first taught this class, the first time I taught this lesson on bargaining and negotiating, I remember I had purchased some furniture. My wife and I had been looking for furniture. I wanted to replace our furniture. It was terrible. We bought it at an estate planning sale. It was a liquidator kind of store. It was terrible. It looked good, but it was seriously uncomfortable, and it was just junk. And I bought it. It was cheap, but I wanted to get rid of it and replace it with leather. I like leather, so I wanted 2 leather couches because our living room is big and I wanted them to face one another, and then a love seat, the same leather. And I wanted electric recliners on all of the furniture, the couches and the love seat. So we found this furniture set that was perfect. It was at Ashley Furniture. It was a Sunday night. So my wife and I got on my Goldwing motorcycle. She rarely gets on my motorcycle with me, but it was a nice, cool evening, Sunday evening, and we went to Ashley Furniture and we bought this furniture. It was perfect. It was perfect. We still have it. So we bought the furniture, and while I'm sitting on the couch in the showroom, I asked the salesperson at Ashley Furniture, I said, hey, tell me something. All of a sudden, I realized I didn't even try to bargain or negotiate on this furniture. And I knew I was teaching this lesson on Tuesday. It was Sunday. On Tuesday, I'd be teaching this lesson. And I felt like I lacked integrity because I knew good and well I was going to talk about how I bargain and negotiate everything because I think it's kind of fun and it works and I do it all the time. But here I was spending about $5,000 on some furniture because I could afford it and I didn't really care. And I wasn't going to bargain and negotiate. I was just going to do it, get it done, check it off my list. Okay, that's what I was going to do. So while I was sitting on this couch in the showroom, I asked the salesperson, I said, hey, tell me something. If I went and shopped for this, would I find it cheaper somewhere else? You know what his answer was? Does anybody know what his answer was? He was a professional salesperson selling furniture at Ashley Furniture Retail Store. Jason, yes. What do you think, Jason? You think you know what he said? What do you think he said? Yes? Oh, you think he said, yes, I would find it cheaper somewhere else? No, he didn't say that. He was a little smarter than that, I think. Because what he did is he started to tell me about how great their service was and how they delivered the next day and how I would be able to get it and they would take good care of me. So he was giving me all the reasons that I should pay more for this furniture. That wasn't really the question I was wanting answered. I wanted to know what's the best price because, frankly, how well I get service from a store that sells me furniture. I mean, once I take the furniture home, I don't really expect any kind of service. And anyway, that's what he said. I went to Rooms to Go this Sunday, Liz says, for a new bed, and I don't even think about negotiating. Well, if you go to Rooms to Go, you definitely can negotiate there. I've bought a lot of furniture there. It's a great place, and they will make a deal if you decide it's worth trying. So at Ashley Furniture, the salesman starts telling me all these reasons that I'm paying more, basically. Not that I wouldn't save money if I shopped around. So I was sitting on this couch, my new couch in the showroom, and I pulled up my iPhone 7. I had a nice iPhone 7 Plus at the time. Now I have a 13. It's way better. But then that was the best phone. For me, it was the best phone I ever owned. And I'm sitting on this couch and I pull up my iPhone and I start to Google because the manufacturer, the product had a name. I don't remember what the name was, but it had a name and a model number, if you will, or whatever the number was. And I just Googled that. And guess what I found? Uh, so Jason's asking Liz, that's a great question, Jason. I hope you'll answer that, Liz. I'm not going to read it out, but basically he's like, why wouldn't you negotiate? So anyway, back to my story. I'm in this store, Ashley Furniture, sitting on the couch I'm about to buy, and I'm paying retail, and I Google it, and I find out that this same exact furniture is available through another company, Coleman Online or something like that. It was an online furniture store. The exact same furniture made by the exact same factory was available for half the price, and there was no tax, and there was free delivery, and the warranty that you pay, like if you scratch the furniture or poke it and they repair it. At Ashley's, I paid $250 per unit. So it was a total of, there were 3 pieces. That was a total of $750. But if you bought it through this online distributor, you paid one price. And if you bought 10 pieces of furniture, they gave you that same warranty on all 10 pieces. So I saved money on the little warranty thing, which I normally wouldn't buy, but that was too good a deal to pass up. I got no tax. The purchase price was about half, and the delivery was free. It was called white glove delivery. The only drawback was it wasn't going to be delivered tomorrow. I was going to have to wait about a week to get my new furniture. So my question to you is, what would you do? Would you pay the $5,000 to Ashley plus the tax, plus the warranty, plus the delivery fee? I will back out at Ashley, Jens says. So, Mandy, I like that. I'm not going to read it. You guys can all read the comments if you're in Zoom. That's one of the benefits of coming to the Zoom is you get to read these comments. So we got a nice little chat going on in there. That's great. So yeah, I would wait a week, Mandy says. Jens says, I would back out at Ashley. Jason says, yep, that's what I would do. I would have done my due diligence first, Jim. Yep, that's what you should do. And that's one of the top 7 tips I'm giving you this week based on just nothing but my own observations, is that research is very helpful and it'll save you the embarrassment of having to do what I had to do. I ran out to my motorcycle and I have little pieces of cash stashed around in my motorcycle. I got all the cash I could find, which wasn't much. It was like $40. And I gave it to the salesman. I said, here's a little tip. I know you're missing a big piece of commission. I'm sorry about that, but there's no way I'm spending $5,000. And I showed him the order. I said, I just bought this online and saved 50%. Dude, I'm sorry you work at Ashley Furniture. That stinks. Because your company is selling a product that's available for half the price with a whole bunch of other benefits at another place, and it's exactly the same product. And so then, from then on, when I teach this lesson, I always have to tell that story because it proves the point that research, doing a little research, is part of bargaining and negotiating. And so I hope that's helpful. I'm in the process right now of bargaining and negotiating something else. I was driving my RV through Houston to go camping a couple of weeks ago, and I got in a little bit of a, you could call it an accident. The trucking company that I had the interaction with is calling it an accident, and they're saying it was my fault. And now I'm having to bargain and negotiate with them about whose fault it was and the damages as well. So I'm driving down in Houston, very narrow lanes. I'm in this big RV, and there's a truck next to me, and the the lanes are going like this, and they're very narrow. And somehow the truck and my vehicle came close enough together as I was passing so that the mirrors touched, barely touched. In fact, my mirror didn't even have a scratch on it, but it did shift the mirror. So I had to pull off, adjust my mirror. And so the trucker, he pulled off as well, and he came over and he wanted to call the police and file a report. I'm like, dude, the police are not going to come out because our mirrors touched. And yet he said that's what his company policy was, yada, yada, yada. So finally I get a call from his insurance company. And he says, they say that it was my fault and they are going to charge me for his time. He sat there all day waiting for the cops to come. I'm like, dude, don't waste your time. Get back on the road. Here's my number. Here's my information. We'll get this worked out. But the poor guy, he felt like he had to stay there. And they wanted to charge me for his whole day of sitting there waiting for the police to show up for an accident that really had no property damage. The plastic piece of his mirror came off. And then they wanted to charge me to replace his entire mirror. And I'm like, yeah, right, nope. And so I'm still bargaining and negotiating with them. And frankly, it's not much fun. But at this point, I feel like, okay, it's a matter of principle. So anyway, that's another story. Off topic, Jason says, maybe I shouldn't read this, but I can't help it. I just want to take a second and recommend that everyone get a dash cam. The initial purchase stinks. So that's interesting. I just actually 10 minutes before I started class, watched the dash cam footage from this truck, and that's the evidence they're using to say it was my fault. And it's not completely conclusive, but it does make me question whether or not maybe I went into the other lane. So it doesn't make me feel like the amount that they want to charge for the piece of plastic was justified, but it definitely is evidence. A dash cam is definitely evidence. And so, yeah, that's what I'm working on right now. Okay, so back to bargaining and negotiating. Let me just kind of wrap things up here because we need to move on. I have some homework for you. I want you to think about bargaining and negotiating. And I want you to spend, I want you to watch some YouTube videos. One of them I actually posted in your assignment. It's this guy, Ramit Sethi. I met Ramit at a conference a while back, and he does this interview. It used to be an entire interview. It was between him and his friend Justin about how to negotiate your salary. Apparently the original video is no longer available, and he kind of shrunk it down, summarized it. So good for you. You get to watch a shorter video. But anyway, I posted in your assignment kind of the timeline inside the video. I just think it's helpful. Ramit wrote this book called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And the conference that I went to that Ramit was at, he was a speaker and just a great young guy. He was a very impressive young man. And at the time, I had just written a book called Make Your Money Count. And I wanted the website, makeyourmoneycount.com, but it was already taken. So based on Ramit, he teaches, I will teach you to be rich. And that was his website, I will teach you to be rich.com. So I went ahead and bought imakeyourmoneycount.com thanks to Ramit. That was an idea I got from him at this conference. But anyway, I think you'll find that video is helpful. And it kind of frames out and punctuates the basic idea of this lesson, that if you decide to bargain and negotiate, there's a whole lot of things that you can actually bargain and negotiate. You know, some people would say you can't negotiate for furniture. You can. Some would say you can't bargain or negotiate for a car. You can. And so I could go on. And one of the things I usually do when we have more time is just go to the board and make a list of all the things that you think are not negotiable. And it's very interesting because the folks on the left side of the room will make a long list of things that are not negotiable. like furniture and cars and groceries and insurance, and the list goes on and on. And then we go to the right side of the room and we actually hear stories about how people have negotiated each of those. And so there's one thing that turns out to be difficult to negotiate, and that's tuition at the University of Houston. Um, but even that, some students would say, hey, you can get a scholarship, you can get a grant, you can get a job on campus. There's lots of ways that may not be considered negotiating, but it is bargaining. And so bargaining and negotiating are kind of twins, brothers and sisters, if you will. So I just want to encourage you, as you think about your financial future, I want you to think about what kind of benefits you might have. Some said 50%, if that magical, there's not a right answer. So 10%, 20%, if it's true, if I could save 10% because I decide to bargain and negotiate a few things like furniture and like, using coupons when I buy groceries, like getting things when they're on sale versus waiting, getting them on sale. Like I do this with meat all the time. I love to smoke meat on my Traeger grill, which I actually bought at Costco because they were having a sale. I waited until I found a sale. I bargained and negotiated, and I got a nice Traeger pellet smoker, and I like to smoke ribs and lots of things. But I never buy meat unless it's on sale, and things like meat goes on sale all the time. Not all the time, but I know the price is going up everywhere, but still it goes on sale. And when you buy it on sale and put it in your freezer, you save a lot of money. And I bought the freezer used on Craigslist for $100. So I'm just saying that you can save money and use that money for something that really matters if you decide to do that, or you could just spend it all in retail and not save. So if I could save 10%, some said 20, 30, even 50. But if I could save 10% on a $100,000 income, that's 10 grand in 1 year. In 10 years, that's 100 grand, $100,000. And if I look out over the span of your investing life, like from now until when you want to think about retirement, I just turned 60 last month, actually in April. So most of you are not 30 years old. So let's say 4 decades before, almost 4 decades before you're my age. If you did save 10% on just $100,000 income, and most of you will make much more than that over the course of your careers. If you did, that would be 4 decades of $10,000 savings. Is almost, that's 400,000. So I don't know what the number is. I just know there is a number, and I want to encourage you to develop some skills in bargaining and negotiating. And that's what this assignment is all about. It's called bargaining and negotiating. And I think maybe I misspelled it somewhere. It's a weird word, negotiating. So good luck with that one. That's going to be posted in Blackboard later today. Another thing that we're going to talk about now, I'm really not going to get into the insurance assignment. The lesson. There's not much I can do in the short amount of time that we have to teach you about home and auto insurance or any kind of insurance. But we have a few minutes, so I want to highlight a little bit about home and auto insurance. And I will tell you that part of your homework this week is to add insurance to your home and your car. So you last week or the week before, you went out and spent some money and you purchased a car, your dream car and your dream house, and then you put some money on the credit card. So one of the things I want you to do this week is I want you to go ahead and put some insurance on those assets. So you will do that in your financial plan. And another thing you're going to do this week is you're going to get a car insurance quote. So the best way to start to learn about the coverages that are involved in your car insurance is to get a quote. And I want to give you a little help, little guidelines as you do this week. So if you don't have car insurance, um, if you can't get car insurance, you're going to have to work with a friend or a family member who's already got insurance. That's what I would do, and get a quote. So if you have car insurance, or let's say you're on your parents' insurance currently, the easiest way for you to do this assignment is to call your insurance company, your insurance agent, or go online and actually get a quote for your policy. So if you already have a policy, you're just getting a comparison quote for your policy. And then in the process of doing that, you're going to be comparing the coverages as you go through that process. So trust me, if you haven't done it or you're clueless about car insurance, this is a great assignment for you to learn a little bit about car insurance, about what coverages are involved. And that's what you're going to be doing in this week's assignment, is learning a little bit about the coverages. So I've posted a pretty good amount of content for you to understand the different coverages in your auto insurance policy, and the same with your home insurance policy. The reason that I wanted to include insurance in this course is because insurance is a very big part of most Americans' budget. It's a category. Insurance is a category, not just in America, but around the world. And so, if you own a car, if you own a home, which you are now, proud owners of a car and a home in your own financial plan. And one day, in reality, and perhaps maybe even now, some of you own a car or you drive a car that's provided to you by your parents. Either way, I want you to get a quote, and I want you to get a quote for the car that you actually have. So if you drive a Corolla on your parents' policy, you can go ahead and get a quote for your new Tesla, and you don't have to actually buy that insurance. You're just getting a quote so that you can find out how much it's going to cost you to insure that car and that house. That's the main point of this week's assignment, is for you to do a little research to figure out how much will it cost for you to put insurance in place to protect the asset that you now own. Insurance is a way to transfer risk. You pay money, it's called a premium, to an insurance company, and they then provide protection for your asset, in this case, your car and your home. And when they do that, they have some things called coverages. And those coverages are what describe what's actually covered under your policy. And that's what you're going to be dealing with in this week's assignment, is you're going to be getting a quote for insurance, and you're going to have to know what coverages you need. So for example, if you drive a Tesla, a 2022 Tesla model, I don't know, fill in the blank, whatever your model is that you pretended to buy in your financial plan. When you insure that vehicle, you're making a contract with an insurance company. You're transferring the risk to the insurance company so that if you get in an accident and you destroy that Tesla, they're going to pay for it. So the contract, the insurance policy, is going to be based on what is it that they're protecting. If it's a 2022 Tesla model, fill in the blank, there's a price tag attached to that vehicle. How much will it cost to replace that vehicle, or specifically repair that vehicle? If the vehicle gets totally destroyed in a car accident, that's called a total loss. And if that happens, the insurance company is going to pay the policy whatever it costs to replace that vehicle. Now, they're not going to replace it with a brand new 2022 Tesla model, fill in the blank, off the showroom floor with no miles on it. They're going to replace it with a used 2022 Tesla model, fill in the blank. So just know that about your car insurance. Unless you have Liberty Insurance with an endorsement, or some companies make that claim, it's a marketing deal where they say, hey, we will replace it with a brand new vehicle. Okay, great. If you've got that insurance, then that's how that works. But most of the time, almost all the time, your car insurance pays to replace your car with a market value for whatever they can go and buy it for from Kelley Blue Book or wherever they could buy a used vehicle from a dealer. So there are lots of coverages. You're going to have to basically dive into different coverages. So a couple of coverages that I wanted to just highlight. I think I have listed them here. Comprehensive is, does anybody know what the word comprehensive means? Go ahead and think about that. It's a coverage on your auto policy. And while you're thinking about what the idea of comprehensive is, I want to mention deductible. Does anybody know what a deductible is? It makes a difference in your insurance policy. So, two questions. What is a deductible? And what does the word comprehensive mean? Those are two important words in this week's lesson. And I think the quiz you're going to take in Money Study Group will address that. So Jason says thorough. That's a pretty good word. It's not complete. Comprehensive, thorough, yes. Complete, comprehensive. It's like everything. Comprehensive is broad. So imagine if you had coverage on your auto policy that said you're covered and the coverage is called comprehensive coverage. What do you think that might mean? What kind of coverage might that be for your car? It's available in the state of Texas. And when you purchase that, yep, you had a motorcycle that was stolen and it was covered under comprehensive. Yep. And it also covers vandalism. That's correct. And you've got a little experience with that. But what else do you think comprehensive coverage covers? Comprehensive coverage covers. And by the way, Jason, what was your deductible? When you had your motorcycle stolen, did you have to pay a deductible? It's interesting, little inside baseball here, but usually if your car is stolen and you have comprehensive, they waive the deductible if it was stolen. I don't know if that's always true, but that's how it was at State Farm, where I was a State Farm agent. So what else does comprehensive cover? If it covers theft, covers vandalism, what else do you think comprehensive might cover? Our better question is, what do you think comprehensive might not cover? And we're still waiting for an answer to the question about what is a deductible. A deductible? I don't want to confuse you, but these are the things you're going to have to kind of wrap your head around as you get a quote for your car insurance this week. So you'll find that a deductible is the amount that you pay in the event of a loss. It's the amount that you keep. So you don't transfer that to the insurance company. You keep that. And what do you think happens if you choose a large deductible? The amount that you have to pay in the event of a claim. If you choose a large deductible, will that raise your premium or reduce your premium? You'll figure that out when you do the quote, because I want you to do a quote where you get a couple of options. Figure out which deductible would you really want. If you had that 2022 Tesla model, fill in the blank, do you want a very low deductible, a medium-sized deductible, or a really high deductible? Which one makes the most sense in terms of your insurance? It's a decision you have to make that will impact the price. So anyone else on any questions so far? What is comprehensive cover? No one's taken a stab at explaining what a deductible is, so I did that for you. So let me just say, okay, for comprehensive, it's an important coverage, and I like to start there because comprehensive coverage is comprehensive, and it covers, according to the insuring agreement in the policy, and this is true in all property and casualty insurance policies. The insuring agreement is what outlines, puts into context what is covered in each of the coverages or the policy, each of the sections of the policy. So we're talking about property coverage. That's generally section 1 of a property and liability policy. A car insurance policy, a home insurance policy, there are 2 sections. The first section covers property, your property. That's what you're paying the insurance for. Section 2 covers liability, your liability. So like I told you the story about the RV that I'm driving and the truck, if it's my fault, and I did damage to the truck's mirror, I'm liable, and I owe I'm liable, therefore I am required to pay for the damage that was a result of my negligence. If I crossed that center line and my mirror hit his mirror and did damage, then it's my fault. I'm liable and I have to pay for that. That's called liability. I could file a claim on my insurance, but I'm not going to because I don't want my rates to go up. And I don't think it was my fault. But if it was my fault, I'm going to write a check. I'm not going to file it with my insurance company. It's a small claim. But that's section 2 of the policy. So I want to talk about that for a minute. Insuring agreements under each section of the policy. Your car insurance policy. Your comprehensive coverage under property. The insuring agreement says it's going to cover everything. Everything's covered. Thus, the name of the coverage. Everything is covered. Think about that. So, if everything is covered, could that possibly be true? What would not be covered if comprehensive coverage covers everything? Think about that for a second. What is it in an insurance policy that protects the insurance company from really actually paying for everything? Because if you look at your homeowner's policy, same thing, section 1, property, section 2, liability. Section 1 in the homeowner's insurance policy in Texas and in most places is called APL, all risk of physical loss, which means the same thing comprehensive means. Everything's covered. It's the insuring agreement that defines that. Now, depending on which policy you buy and which endorsements you get on the policy, if I was your insurance agent and I was giving you advice, I would say make sure you get the policy that provides APL, all risk of physical loss. And you may have to buy an endorsement. You may have to shop around to a different insurance company, but that's available in most places. So if that's true, though, whether we're talking about comprehensive insurance on your car, covers everything, or APL coverage on your home, covers everything, what do you think's not covered? Brings up an important part of insurance. It's called exclusions, things that are not covered, that are specifically listed as exclusions. So now I want you to think about, if comprehensive covers everything, what's excluded? Think about that. There's another coverage on your auto policy called collision, which covers collision. If you get in an accident that's your fault, your insurance will pay for your car if you have collision coverage. So what do you think might be excluded under comprehensive? It covers everything, but there's some exclusions. And the first exclusion is collision, because you have to buy that coverage separately. So now let's jump over to the homeowner's insurance policy. It covers everything except what's excluded. What do you think's excluded in a homeowner's policy? Anybody here for Hurricane Harvey? Anybody remember that? Yes, Yen. Flood is like the number one exclusion in a homeowner's policy. It does not cover flood. There's a whole lot of exclusions in a homeowner's policy, but the point is the policy covers anything that happens to your house is covered unless it's excluded. So there are a lot of exclusions, things like rust, rot. Basically, an insurance policy pays for things that are sudden and accidental. That's the insuring agreement. So even though it says APL, all risk of physical loss, it says if it's sudden and accidental, it's covered unless it's excluded. So flood is sudden and accidental, but it's excluded. Same thing is true with your car, with comprehensive. It has to be sudden and accidental. I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you 2 stories if I have time, and I'm going to run out of time quick. But the first story is my buddy Vance. When I moved to Houston, my buddy Vance gave me a ride. He helped me move, actually. His name was Vance. He was the guy that got me the job at State Farm. He was a claim superintendent, super smart guy. He was in charge in Austin of the liability claim department. So liability claims are different than property claims. He was into the liability side. And I was a new State Farm adjuster, and I was moving to Houston because I got a job with State Farm as a claims adjuster. And Vinny Vance was helping me move. We were in his new Suburban, 1989. It was December, I think, maybe January. I guess it was January. I'm not sure. It was 89. So I started at State Farm November of 89. So it would have been the beginning of 90, right? And he had a new Suburban, Chevy Suburban, and he and I and our boys were in the vehicle cruising down the road, and um, we had just stopped to get a drink, a big gulp at a Circle K or whatever. And so Vinny Vance had his big gulp, that's a big Coke, in the console. We're driving down the interstate in Houston doing about 70 miles an hour, and he reaches for his big gulp. And when he does, he bumps his vehicle into reverse, doing 70 miles an hour. Do you know what happens to a transmission when you're doing 70 miles? I used to be a master mechanic. I don't know if I told you that, but I have an idea what happens mechanically and hydraulically when you go into reverse doing 70 miles an hour. It basically shells the transmission. And that's what happened. His truck, his Suburban, stopped working pretty much immediately. Sudden and accidental. And so I said to Vance, man, I didn't say anything at that point. We just took care of business, got a tow truck, yada, yada, yada. A few days later, Vance calls me up and he says, Jim, I know you're a master mechanic. I got an estimate. It's going to be $2,500 to replace my transmission. What do you think my question was to him? Because I was in training as a claims adjuster at State Farm, and I just learned about this whole idea of an insuring agreement that says everything's covered unless it's excluded. So I said to Vinny, my buddy, have you filed a claim yet for that? And he replied, this is a guy who's way smarter than me, been doing this business, insurance business, claims adjusting for decades. And he was way smarter than me. I was just a student learning. And he's like, are you crazy? That's not covered. I'm like, wait a minute. It says, the insuring agreement says everything's covered unless it's excluded. Vinny, where's the exclusion for reaching for the big gulp and bumping your transmission into reverse while you're doing 70 miles an hour down the interstate? Where's that exclusion? If it's not excluded, it's covered. He said, you're crazy. I said, maybe I'm crazy, but it's worth a call. File the claim. Call your agent. File a claim. He calls me back in the next couple of days and says, I can't believe it, but they're going to pay all the cost. He had a $50 deductible, and they paid for a new transmission in his truck because it was covered under comprehensive. So my point to you is, and what I want you to learn is, insurance is a big part of your budget. I want you to commit to learning what you need to learn about insurance so that you become a good consumer of insurance, meaning you know how it works sufficiently so that at least when it's applicable, you can take advantage of the insurance coverages that you have. So that's one story. And hopefully you go, wow, that's interesting. Hopefully that makes you think about what other coverages and how they work and how a little information might be really helpful. That's one story. The other story has to do with a homeowner's policy. Remember, all property and casualty policies have two sections: the property and the liability. The liability is what protects you in the event that you do something that you're at fault for. And so your homeowner's insurance has liability protection, and it covers you anywhere in the world for your acts or any of your anyone under the policy who's an insured by definition. So in my case, I'm married, I have 3 kids. If one of my kids do something that's dumb, somebody gets hurt or somebody's property gets damaged, my liability protection covers them. So if money's going to be paid out for that, if a claim is filed, the insurance company will come in and provide payment for that loss. Okay, so here's the story. There's a coverage on homeowners insurance called medical payments coverage. It's under Section 2, liability, but you don't have to be liable for medical payments coverage. It's a special coverage. It's usually only like $1,000, but you can raise it to $5,000, which is what I would do when you get your quote. Pay attention, look for that coverage. It's called medical payments to others. It's a really helpful coverage because, unlike liability, you don't have to be liable. It's just if it happens as a result of your activities, it's covered. Now, it only pays medical bills, but that can be very important. Here's how. So it was it was a hot day. School was in, about to be summer break. My son, who was in second grade, was out going to recess with his class, and they were in a line going to play on the playground. And my son's shoelace was untied, and they're walking across this blacktop parking lot, and the kid behind him was stomping his foot on my son's shoelace, making him trip. He thought that was funny, and it probably was funny. My son was probably being a clown because he was a really good clown. But he fell because he tripped, because the kid stepped on his shoelace, and he got the nastiest cut on his knee, and he had to go to the emergency room. He had to have surgery, and it cost like $800. And I wasn't making much money, and we had not met our health insurance deductible, and I was bummed. So, knowing what I knew about insurance, I found out the kid's name, and I got his parents' phone number, and I called him up and I said, "Hey, would you do me a favor? Your kid did this, and this is what happened, and your policy provides protection, and you'd be doing me a big favor. Would you please do that? File a claim and let me get my medical bills paid?" My son would have thought that I, did something really rotten to these people, but it wasn't rotten. It was just it's how the policy works. And so naturally, I got my medical payment. I got his medical bills covered. And so that was a good thing. That was a good thing. And so that's one story. Here's another story quickly, and then I'll wrap up. My daughter had a friend, Kayla was her name. They're like second grade too, maybe first grade. But we had a dog named Hershey. Hershey was the ugliest dog that ever lived. He was a Yorkie poo. That's a Yorkshire Terrier and a poodle mix, a little guy. He weighed 8 pounds, and he had the longest, skinniest, goofiest looking legs. Anyway, Kayla comes over. Well, what happened like 2 months earlier is my daughter, Carissa, Hershey would just he would like lay on the floor right next to her. And one day she stepped on his long, skinny leg and broke it. And so Hershey had to have a cast. It cost like, I don't know, $400, and that was a bummer, but we paid it, and he had a cast, and he finally got the cast off when Kayla came over and spent the night, and they were getting ready for school one morning, and she picked Hershey up and she set him on the sink while she was doing whatever first grade, second grade girls do in the bathroom in front of the mirror. And so Hershey's on the sink, and then Kayla finishes whatever she did in front of the mirror, and she just leaves. And she leaves Hershey on the counter. What do you think Hershey did? I'm looking for an answer. Go ahead and answer that if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. I'll send you. Yeah, Mandy. Jumped right off. What do you think happened to his leg that was recently broken and we just removed the cast? He rebroke it. So I took him to the vet. This time the vet said, "Oh, it's bad. We're going to have to put screws and bolts, and it was going to be $1,500." And I was like, "Oh no." So I did the same thing. I called Kayla's parents and I explained the situation, told them how much it was going to cost us, and I really didn't have the money, and I was hoping they would be kind enough to file a claim on their insurance under medical payments. That was interesting because you might say medical payments don't apply to a pet or a dog, and you might be right. But the policy isn't super duper clear about that. And whenever there's ambiguity, that's an important thing for you to know. Whenever the policy has some level of ambiguity, that always goes to the favor of the consumer, not the insurance company. It's a legal thing. And so in that case, I made a claim, and it wasn't absolutely clear in the policy that medical bills did not apply to a professional veterinarian, and so I got that covered under medical payments to others. So that's just one coverage in Section 2 of your homeowner's insurance. I want you to be paying attention to all of the different coverages, and I'm trying to plant a seed for you to start to learn about each of the pieces of your insurance policy and how they work. You won't be an expert, but if you just pay attention to those pieces of each insurance policy that you have, you'll begin to become a much more informed consumer. And that's the point of this section, this lesson, this assignment. It's just to help you get started to become uh, a more effective consumer of insurance, because it is a big category in your budget. So that's this week's lesson 1 and lesson 2. Summer school is summer school, which means we go fast. You have 2 assignments this week. One of them is bargaining and negotiating. You'll watch some videos, you'll do an article, you'll tell me what you learned, you'll tell me what you're going to do in the context of bargaining and negotiating. And then the second assignment is adding home and auto insurance to your financial plan and getting an auto insurance quote so that you can start learning about what those coverages are. So good luck. One caveat, one warning before you go. One thing I would not do is just go online and Google insurance quote and try to get an insurance quote, because you'll get inundated with emails from people trying to sell you insurance. Start with your own insurance company, and if you're not insured, try and work with a friend who has insurance and get a quote using their insurance, get their help. There's lots of ways to do it. Good luck. I look forward to reviewing your assignments, and I'll see you next time. And I'll hang around. If you have any questions, go ahead and post those in the chat, and I'm going to end the broadcast, but I'll keep the Zoom meeting open for a minute. So let me jump over here, and I am going to finish. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, I'm signing off. Thanks for being with us. Don't forget to leave your comment. I'm closing out the broadcast now.